All right, so back to the deep dive with something I think a lot of you are curious about, ProDentim. It's this supplement that's getting a lot of attention for its supposed, well, benefits for your oral health.
Mm.
You're going to break down their marketing and even some user testimonials to see, see what's real, what's hype, what ProDentim really offers.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that, well, when you're looking at marketing materials, they often emphasize, the positives, the exciting stuff, not always the full picture, right? So we're here to kind of sift through it all and help you really see what ProDentim is all about.
Okay, so then first things first. What exactly is ProDentim? What's like the big idea they're promoting here?
Well, they're really focusing on this idea of repopulating your mouth with good bacteria, probiotics as they're often called. It's tapping into this growing awareness of the microbiome, not just in our gut, but maybe in other areas like our mouths too.
Interesting. So are they saying our mouths are like lacking these good bacteria? What's the problem they're claiming to solve?
Their marketing seems to suggest that a lot of everyday oral care products, things like toothpaste, mouthwash, the standards, might actually have ingredients that disrupt the natural balance of bacteria in our mouths. They even reference a study from Springer Nature that links a healthy oral microbiome to, well, good dental health.
And they even brought up this example of like fossilized teeth lasting for centuries, implying that something about, the modern world is hurting our oral health.
It's definitely a thought-provoking point.
Makes you think about what we're putting in our mouths, right?
It does. And to address this supposed imbalance, ProDentim boasts a blend of 3.5 billion probiotic strains.
Okay, so that's a lot of bacteria. What are these specific strains? Like, what are they supposed to do?
Well, they've got a few key players in there. Lactobacillus paracesi, which is supposed to be good for your gums and even sinus health. B-lactis BL04, that one's aimed at balancing oral bacteria and maybe even boosting your immune system a bit. Yeah. And then there's Lactobacillus reuteri. That one's all about, promoting a healthy inflammatory response in your mouth.
So it's not just like a generic probiotic. They're using specific strains for, more targeted benefits, I guess. What about the other ingredients? There was a pretty big list on their site.
Right. So on top of those probiotics, they've got inulin, which is a prebiotic. It basically feeds the good bacteria. Malic acid, which they get from strawberries. It's often used for teeth whitening. Dicalcium phosphate, which is good for overall tooth health. And of course, you can't forget the mint. It's a natural anti-inflammatory and, well, it helps with that fresh breath, right?
It seems like they're going for a pretty natural approach. Their marketing really highlights the fact that it's a non-GMO, stimulant-free, gluten-free, and non-habit forming.
Yeah, definitely playing into that growing consumer preference for natural products, especially when it comes to health and wellness,
Yeah, it looks like ProDentim isn't just, sticking to just the basics of oral health. They've got these 2 free bonuses they offer with larger orders. One is a guide for fresh breath, and the other is, well, they call it a method for Hollywood white teeth.
Smart marketing, right. They're broadening their appeal, not just basic oral hygiene, but tapping into, that desire for a brighter smile, fresher breath. Yeah. It's something a lot of people want.
Absolutely. And speaking of appealing to consumers, we're going to talk about those user testimonials, right? ProDentim's website is full of, well, people raving about it, claiming like life-changing results, even some saying their dentists are amazed by the improvements.
Yeah, you always have to take testimonials with a grain of salt, right? Remember, these are curated by the company, so they're probably going to highlight, the most positive experiences. But I mean, the sheer volume, they claim over 95,000 testimonials. That's a lot of people, so it does make you wonder. Yeah,
it does make you wonder if there's something to it. Okay, so what about the financial side of things? Yeah. How do you actually, buy it? And is there any kind of safety net for buyers if they, aren't happy with it?
They offer a 60-day money-back guarantee, which is pretty standard for supplements. But it's good to see it basically lets you try it risk-free for 2 months.
That's good. Yeah, that's reassuring. And for actually getting your hands on ProDentim, they mentioned free shipping within the U.S. For international orders, it looks like the cost and delivery time varies depending on where you are.
Right. And they definitely seem to be pushing those larger orders, discounted pricing. It's a common strategy, especially with supplements where, well, they emphasize consistent long-term use.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from the basic idea behind ProDentim to the specific ingredients, the marketing, the user feedback. I'm curious, what are your, initial impressions? Anything stand out to you as particularly noteworthy?
I think what's really intriguing is this shift in focus, moving away from that traditional kill-all bacteria approach. And instead, nurturing the beneficial bacteria. It's a different way of thinking. And it really aligns with this growing understanding of the microbiome's importance, not just in our gut, but potentially throughout our bodies.
Yeah, that's a great point. It makes you wonder if we've been, too aggressive in our approach to oral hygiene in the past, maybe disrupting a balance that's actually really important for our overall health. Definitely something to think about.
Definitely something to think about.
And something we'll want to explore further. But for now, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come back, we'll delve a little deeper into, the potential implications of this approach, what it might actually mean for you. So stay with us. So we were talking about ProDentim's unique approach to oral health, this idea of nurturing the oral microbiome instead of just trying to eliminate bacteria. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the potential implications of this?
Well, it's interesting to think about, right? We've seen a similar shift in thinking when it comes to gut health. This whole idea that a diverse and balanced microbiome is really crucial for overall well-being. It's becoming more mainstream, and so you start to wonder, could the same principle apply to,
to our mouths?
Yeah, and ProDentim's marketing touches on this a little bit. They suggest that a healthy oral microbiome could have benefits beyond just fresh breath and white teeth. They even mention potential improvements in, respiratory health, immune function, sleep, even digestion.
Right, they're really painting this picture of a more holistic approach to health where, the mouth is seen as kind of a gateway to the rest of the body. It's a compelling narrative, but of course, we need to look at the scientific evidence too.
Absolutely. And they do cite a study from Springer Nature linking the oral microbiome to dental health. Can you tell us a little bit more about that study? What did they find, and, how strong is the evidence? So that study, it was published in Springer Nature. They looked at the composition of the oral microbiome in people with, varying levels of dental health. And they found that people with healthier teeth and gums tended to have a more diverse and balanced oral microbiome with higher levels of certain, beneficial bacteria.
So it does seem to support the idea that the types of bacteria in our mouths can influence our oral health by it. Is that is that enough research to really, make a definitive conclusion?
That's the big question, right? It's an interesting study. It provides some data, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. More research is needed to really fully understand, the complex relationship between the oral microbiome and our overall health.
That makes sense. It's easy to get, caught up in the excitement of a new approach, but we got to be mindful of the the limitations of individual studies. What are some things that listeners should keep in mind when they're evaluating these scientific claims, whether it's ProDentim or any supplement, really?
Well, I think it's crucial to look at the totality of the evidence, right? Don't just rely on, a single study or a few testimonials. Look for research that's been published in reputable journals. Ideally, studies that have been, replicated by other researchers independently.
Yeah, and it's also important to think about things like sample size, methodology, potential biases. Science is a process, right? It often takes, multiple studies to really get a solid understanding.
Exactly. And it's always wise to, to discuss these things with your dentist or your doctor. They can give you personalized advice based on your own health history and needs.
That's a great reminder. We're here to provide, information and insights, but we're not healthcare professionals. Always best to consult with your, with your own medical team before you make any decisions about your health. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit. Talk about, user feedback. We've touched on the testimonials, but anything else we should highlight here?
I think it's worth repeating that, even though the testimonials are overwhelmingly positive, they're curated by the company. So they may not represent the full spectrum of experiences,
Right. They're probably going to highlight the success stories, not necessarily the people who didn't see results or maybe even had negative experiences.
Exactly. So it's always a good idea to approach testimonials with a little bit of skepticism, no matter how, enthusiastic they sound. If you can, look for reviews from, independent sources to get a more balanced perspective.
That's a good point. Having those multiple viewpoints is always helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've discussed the science, the marketing, the user feedback. What are your final thoughts on ProDentim? What should our listeners really, take away from this?
Well, I think ProDentim raises some really interesting questions. about how we approach oral health, you know? This focus on nurturing the oral microbiome instead of, you know, just attacking bacteria. It's a compelling concept, and it definitely warrants you know, further exploration.
But it's important to remember that this is still a relatively new area of research. The initial findings are, you know, they're promising, but more studies are needed to really confirm the long-term benefits of this approach.
Absolutely. And while the testimonials are, you know, generally positive, they're not a substitute for scientific evidence.
So to wrap things up, ProDentim presents an intriguing concept. It's got some potential, but approach it with a you know, critical eye. Do your own research before you make any decisions.
Absolutely. Talk to your dentist, you know, read up on the latest research and think about, you know, your own individual needs and goals before you jump on any, you know, any new health trend.
Great advice. I think that's a perfect place to leave it for now. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into ProDentim. Hope you found it informative, maybe even a little thought-provoking. And, you know, remember, the power to make informed decisions about your health, it's in your hands.
Yeah. And until next time, keep diving deeper.
Okay, so we're back for this final part of our deep dive into ProDentim. We've looked at their claims, the ingredients, the science behind it, or at least, you know, what we know so far. But this whole exploration has kind of opened up a much bigger question.
It really has, yeah. This whole focus on the oral microbiome and how that might connect to, you know, our overall health. It's something that goes way beyond just one product, you know?
Exactly, yeah. We've all heard about, you know, gut health and how those bacteria in our intestines can affect everything from, you know, digestion to immunity. And it makes you think, could the same be true for our mouths?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it's something researchers are actively looking into right now. There's growing evidence that suggests that the oral microbiome might play a much bigger role than we originally thought.
So this ProDentim deep dive has actually given us like a starting point for a whole new avenue of exploration. You know, it's like we stumbled upon a hidden door in the world of health and wellness.
I like that analogy. And there's a lot to discover behind that door. Researchers are finding these connections between the oral microbiome and, you know, conditions like heart disease, diabetes, even Alzheimer's disease.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. It really highlights how interconnected our bodies are and how, you know, these seemingly unrelated systems can actually influence each other.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that health isn't just about, you know, treating symptoms in isolation, but about understanding this whole complex web of interactions, you know, within our bodies.
So where can our listeners go from here if they're interested in, you know, learning more about this connection between the oral microbiome and their overall health? What resources would you recommend?
Well, there are some great resources online. You know, reputable organizations like the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, and the Mayo Clinic. They have articles and research summaries on the oral microbiome.
And if you really want to dive deep into the science, you can always check out those research databases like PubMed, see what the latest studies are saying.
Absolutely, yeah. And don't forget to talk to your dentist. They can be a great source of information.
Right.
And they can give you advice that's, you know, tailored to you based on your own oral health needs.
Yeah, right. They might even be aware of new research or trends that haven't quite made it to the mainstream yet.
Exactly, yeah. It's always good to have those conversations with your healthcare providers.
And of course, if you're still curious about ProDentim itself, you can find a link to their official website in the episode description. Just remember, as with any health product, it's always best to buy from, you know, reputable sources. That way, you can be sure you're getting the genuine product.
Good point. Yeah, and always talk to your doctor or dentist before starting any new supplement.
Yeah,
especially if you have any underlying health conditions, or if you're taking other medications.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into ProDentim. We hope this exploration has been insightful and maybe even sparked your curiosity to learn more about this fascinating world of, you know, health and wellness.
We always encourage our listeners to be active participants in their own health journey. Do your research, ask questions, and don't be afraid to to challenge conventional thinking.
Remember, knowledge is power. And the more informed you are, the better equipped you are to make those decisions that really, you know, support your well-being.